author, speaker, and HBT Marketing Chief Creative Officer who applies behavioral science to trigger the hardwired behaviors that automatically increase engagement and response. There's a researcher named Antonio Damasio, and he studied people who had sustained injury to the parts of their brain that controlled emotion. And what he found was these people had virtually no ability to make a decision, even a decision as simple as what would you like for lunch today. Not only did they reactivate a huge number of the financial advisors who had stopped doing business with them, they ended up tracing back $68 million in incremental revenue to that one promotion. And it just showed the power of the reciprocity principle. These financial advisors had stopped doing business, so they weren't asking for anything. And all of a sudden this gift arrives that they didn't ask for, but now it's there. And suddenly they're like, maybe I should take their call. Maybe I should talk to the wholesaler. Maybe I should start selling their funds again. Just by something as simple as, instead of saying sign up for the meeting, we said, we've already signed you up for the meeting. Here's when it is. 415% increase in response. So
one thing no one knows about you.
I'm incredibly shy.
Hello, fellows. Welcome to the next episode of Jagged with Jasravi. Subscribe to my channel for conversations at the edge with thought leaders from the branding, marketing, and the business world. Conversations that will ignite new ideas that have rough and sharp edges. Hello, Nancy. Thrilled to have you on my show.
Well, hello. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
If I requested you to tweet your profile, what would you say?
Okay. I would say author, speaker, and HBT Marketing Chief Creative Officer who applies behavioral science to trigger the hardwired behaviors that automatically increase engagement and response.
So lots of threads, but we'll straight away get into the book. So Nancy, why did you write this book? What inspired you? You saw a white space. I know. I've been reading about you and what you've written. What was it?
Well, the funny thing is, I speak at a lot of conferences, and I spoke at one conference and some people came up to me and said, I really want to buy your book. And I said, oh, that's really sweet. I don't have a book, and I just thought it was, it was flattering. It was kind of a fun story. And then, a little time passed, I spoke at another conference and the same thing happened. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then I was lined up to speak at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, the big interactive conference, and COVID canceled it. But I got a message from Kogan Page, which is a publisher based in London. And they said, we saw you were going to be speaking. We're really interested in the topic. And we wanted to know if you would submit a book proposal. And at that point, I thought, you know what, I think I'm ready. Up until then, I thought, oh, what do I have to say? But there'd been so much interest. I thought maybe this is the time, because I'm very passionate about applying behavioral science and marketing. I have seen what it does for my clients. I've seen the great results that it produces. And so I use it for my clients, but I can only have so many clients. I speak about it at conferences, but I can only speak at so many conferences. And I thought if I actually get the book out there, all of these people could benefit from what I've learned and from the excitement and passion I have for applying behavioral science to marketing. So that was why I did it. I come from an agency background, not from a academic background or research background. So I thought that my perspective would be a little bit more unusual and particularly applicable to people who wanted very hands-on, tactical, let me grab this and use this information, not a lot of science, if you will, just enough to legitimize what I'm saying, but much more practical, actionable advice backed up with, case studies and in-market research, as well as references to academic research about why these principles work and demonstrations of how they work.
Yeah. I love this fact that, it's coming from a practitioner, because a lot of times everybody's, looks at this cool new thing that has come, so it's maybe it is old wine in a new bottle, but once people get into it, they realize it's a completely new way of thinking about being human. Or every time I come to know about a new effect or a new, phenomenon or a syndrome, I shouldn't be calling them this, but, I introspect and I'm like, oh my God, it's true. Oh my God, it's true.
Well, that's the funny thing. It's these are hardwired human behaviors that have been with humans for generation upon generation upon generation. They're, at one point, many of them at least, these hardwired behaviors helped keep us alive, helped us pass on our genes to the next generation. And now, in the modern world, they kind of help us get through the day. They're just decision-making shortcuts that help us conserve mental energy. And a lot of times they impact our actions and we're not even aware of it. There are these little factors that are, floating along just below the surface that maybe push us in one direction or another. And, to your point, they work because we're human, regardless of whether we're male or female or young or old or in India or in the US or in Europe. But, it just, not that there aren't certain little cultural or gender differences, behavioral scientists have found those, but for the most part, we're just hardwired as humans to have some of these decision defaults that we just rely on. And so if a marketer becomes aware of them, it just makes a marketer's job much easier. One could argue, oh no, marketers try so hard to get the right message to the right person at the right time. And then it turns out that people are hardwired not to really be paying attention to them. You think, oh, that's bad news. But the truth is it's actually good news because we know that people have these hardwired behaviors, and as marketers, we can get out ahead of them. We can craft our messages so that they trigger these hardwired behaviors and make it more likely that people will engage with the message and respond to it. So, behavioral science, I think, is tailor-made for marketers. It's certainly used in education and politics and healthcare, but it's really tailor-made for marketers.
Yeah, because they really want some response. I mean, they've crafted the stimulus. Now they want a response. Something needs to happen before. So there are 17 chapters that in your book, and various effects and various examples of how this can be applied. We will first start with the larger aspect that people have to really assimilate. Marketers and branding people have to really assimilate is the emotion and not logic. The moment we say that, emotion is trivialized so much. So if you could talk about how human beings take decisions at the emotion level and how logic, I mean, it has its place, but how it works, then we go deeper with examples to pick up some effects and demonstrate what kind of marketing messages and what kind of effects and instant response happens with these applications.
Sure. So what behavioral scientists have found is people actually make decisions for emotional reasons, and then they later justify those decisions to themselves and to other people with rational reasons. And a lot of times in marketing, we think we need to get the information to people, the speeds and the feeds and the features and the benefits and the way to buy and the price and all of these facts. And certainly they're important, but that's not what makes people buy. People respond on an emotional level, and this is true whether you're talking about business to consumer advertising or business to business advertising. There's a researcher named Antonio Damasio, and he studied people who had sustained injury to the parts of their brain that controlled emotion. And what he found was these people had virtually no ability to make a decision, even a decision as simple as what would you like for lunch today? They couldn't decide. They would go around and around. They just couldn't land. They couldn't decide. And Damasio found that we really need to access the emotional parts of our brain in order to make decisions. And so, when you talk to some people about this, that, they might concede that, okay, emotion is important for certain categories. Maybe if you're buying flowers or if you're buying clothing but the truth is it applies across the board. We did some work for a B2B client. They were making business intelligence software. So a very sophisticated product that they were marketing to a highly intelligent, sophisticated audience. And the idea of their business intelligence software was that it unlocked the data that was in separate databases so that you could get a full 360-degree view. And that was what their product did. And they knew that, most people were dealing with data that was locked away in different databases. So they could have done advertising that said, hey, this is what we do. That alone would have, been a good thing to do. And you could see a lot of marketers saying, well, yeah, it's performing this task that's really important, and we need to get the word out about precisely what it does. Or we could have taken a problem solution approach. We could have said, hey, you're making decisions, but you're making them with insufficient data. You're not seeing everything that you should see. And as a result, that's a problem. So problem, solution. Our solution is we'll unlock all the data in the different databases. But the approach that the client we were working with ultimately rolled out a very emotion-driven one. What we did is we thought about what it might feel like to be the executive who's being asked to make all of these decisions with insufficient data, knowing that they don't see everything that they might want to see, and how difficult that must be, and how it must maybe keep you up at night, or give you an upset stomach, or give you a headache, or make you just keep second guessing yourself because you're making these decisions that really impact not just your job, but the livelihood of the employees at the company, the standing of the company, the financial success of the company, maybe whether or not the company gets into regulatory problems. So it was really quite weighty decision making that they were faced with, and they were doing it, without everything they needed. So we led with a series of very emotionally driven headlines, things like the delete button for that voice in your head, or the antacid for a diet of tough decisions. We really kind of doubled down on the emotion, and then leading with that, we then of course talked about the product and what it did. You have to do that, but the client took the work into testing and found that they got a 11% lift in brand favorability and a 13% lift in purchase intent based on this very emotionally driven campaign. It wasn't all about, facts and figures and the rational reasons to buy this and all the reasons it made sense for your company, the dollars and cents. It was really much more of an emotional approach. And I believe that the reason it worked so well is the target market, upon reading it, thought, wow, these guys get it. They understand my world. They understand what I'm faced with, what I'm struggling with. If they understand me that well, it's reasonable to assume they have a product that will help, that I should really, benefit from, and as a result, I should buy. So I think that's the power of emotion. And sometimes marketers in certain categories in particular overlook it, and we really shouldn't, because emotions drive our decisions. And so we want both emotional and rational components in our marketing messages.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that a great example, Nancy? And the connection happens quickly. All that we is being talked about, human to human marketing. I mean, isn't it that the marketer looked at the user as a human being? A lot of people in advertising and branding feel that anyways we are doing this process, because if we have an insight, if we've laddered that this attribute does this functional benefit, and then it's this emotional benefit, and then of course it goes to a value, etc. But yeah, if we've pegged ourselves at an emotional benefit, we've taken that into account. But this is not that. And this is a contextual understanding of the person.
Sure. So, so we're talking about the power of emotion and how emotion drives decisions. And using behavioral science, there are ways to trigger various emotions, very powerful emotions. So, for example, behavioral scientists have found that people are actually twice as motivated to avoid the pain of loss than they are to achieve the pleasure of gain. So it's the idea of loss aversion. Now, in marketing, we often focus on the benefits, the gains, the advantages, all the wonderful things that will happen if you buy my product, sign up for my service, if you just respond to my ad or my mail package, whatever it is. And there's nothing wrong with benefits. We know that benefits work, but a little well-placed loss aversion can be just what you need, because people don't want to feel like they're missing out. People don't want to feel like they're making a mistake, or that they're missing an opportunity. And so a little bit of well-placed loss aversion can actually go a long way. So instead of just focusing on, what a product does and how good it will make you feel or how successful you'll be with it, we can talk a little bit about the pain you'll be in if you don't buy the product, or the pain you can avoid if you do buy the product. But basically tapping into this feeling that people have that they don't want to make mistakes, they don't want to lose out, they don't want to miss opportunities. So I think that's one way that we can leverage emotion, a very specific kind of emotion, with behavioral science in our marketing. Another would be using something called reciprocity. And what behavioral scientists have found is people feel obliged to return a favor. So if I sent you a birthday card, you might think, oh, I've got to send Nancy a birthday card on her birthday. Or if we were working together and, we went out to lunch and you bought lunch, I would think, okay, the next time we go out to lunch, I have to buy lunch. We want to return the favor. We want to answer in kind what someone has done for us. And behavioral scientists have found that this is true even if we didn't ask for the gift. If you receive something, whether or not you asked for it, whether or not you've wanted it, once you've received it, you feel obligated to even the score, obligated to return the favor, obligated to do something for the person who gave you the gift. So we can use reciprocity as marketers because, we can tell people, oh, we're going to offer you something for free or for no obligation. And people think, oh, good, it's free, it's no obligation. But once they take it, then they feel like, all right, if I'm going to do anything in this category, if I'm going to move forward, I'm going to move forward with these people because they're the ones who gave it to me. There was a client of ours. They came to us and they sold financial services and they dealt with financial advisors. So they sold, funds and planning, and they had different financial advisors that represented their products. And about a year ago, a group of these financial advisors had stopped selling their products. So the client came to us and said, we want to reactivate them. They're not answering our calls. They're not answering our emails. We want to reactivate them. So we decided to use the reciprocity principle. We thought what we would do is we would send them a gift. Now, some marketers listening might say, well, why would you do that? Why would you spend money sending a gift to people who aren't doing business with you? Why don't you send the gift to reinforce the positive behavior? Send the gift to the people who are doing business with you. And there's certain wisdom there, but we decided that we we're going to send the gift to the people who had not been doing business in the last 12 months. So we sent out an email, and the email said, watch your mail. We picked out a gift. It's especially for you. It'll be arriving soon. A couple of days later, in the mail arrived this white box, and inside the box was a framed New Yorker cartoon. And the cartoon was about some little kid going around the neighborhood selling financial services. And, it was cute. It was appropriate. It was relevant to the target. And every financial planner saw their name in the caption. So mine would have my name in it. The one you received would have your name in it. So here it is. It's relevant. It's personalized. It's framed. You're going to put it on your office wall. And it was accompanied by a note from the wholesaler, from our client, that said, hey, we've been trying to get in touch. We'd love to talk with you, find out what's going on, update you on what we're doing. Not only did they reactivate a huge number of the financial advisors who had stopped doing business with them, they ended up tracing back $68 million in incremental revenue to that one promotion. And it just showed the power of the reciprocity principle. These financial advisors had stopped doing business, so they weren't asking for anything. And all of a sudden, this gift arrives that they didn't ask for, but now it's there. And suddenly they're like, maybe I should take their call. Maybe I should talk to the wholesaler. Maybe I should start selling their funds again. $68 million. So the idea of the reciprocity principle can make people feel, well, honestly, a little guilty, and guilt can be a powerful motivator. So there are definitely different ways that we can use these behavioral science principles. Another one is the idea of social proof. When we're not sure of what to do, we follow what other people do. That makes us feel comfortable and confident.
Yeah, absolutely. So typically this whole thing of, let's show positive aspects, let's show happy faces, not necessarily, you're not doing that, but you're evoking at one level pain of having missed out or anticipation of some loss. And in the second one, it is guilt. So you've got a gift, it's made you feel special, you felt cared for, but it was like it's to a lapser perhaps, or somebody who's, so that's a beautiful thing, because I know getting back lapsers is such a huge pain point for marketers, especially salon businesses, where the lifetime value of every customer is so high, and the whole idea is make them upsell, make them cross sell. But if suddenly they are silent for 12 months, instead of just cold calling or sending WhatsApp texts about new services, well, how about you give them a taste of what it's like to be their customer again. So that's beautiful. And third one you just mentioned was social proof. Yes, if you go to a new place and there are two shops, I think it works universally, and nobody is going to one shop and to the other one, there is like a long line. You won't mind waiting for the long line because you're sure that the product is going to be good. That's why so many people are coming. Yes. So would this apply to email marketing? Are there any human behavior hacks if we could call them cognitive biases, but I like this hack that can make your email crazy effective.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the ones that we talked about, the idea of social proof, you can use that in an email when you talk about the most popular product or the most popular service or the number of customers you have, or even using a testimonial. That's a great way to use social proof. Or maybe if you're writing a subject line and you want to use some loss aversion, instead of saying take advantage of this offer, you could say don't miss this offer. That just those two little words, don't miss, can be enough to trigger the idea of loss aversion. Um, One thing I like to recommend for my clients is using what I call eye magnet words. And those are words that have been proven to leap off the screen and attract the eye like a magnet. Because a lot of research has shown that when people read, they skim and they scan. And if something captures their attention, then they go in and they more fully consume the content. They're skimming and scanning. If something catches their eye, then they go, oh, let me read this. Let me take a closer look. And there are some words that have the ability, some words that are just stronger, more powerful than others. Some of them revolve around the idea of novelty, because the human brain is hardwired to seek out the new and novel. Because when we find something that we think is new, it releases dopamine, and that's a feel-good chemical. It makes us feel good. And so as a result, we're kind of jonesing for that next hit of dopamine. We want that next feel-good feeling. And so we're looking, find something new. So for my clients, I say, let's use the word new or any of the family of new words: new, now, introducing, announcing, finally, soon, discover. Discover is a much better word than learn. A lot of times we say, oh, you'll learn this, or here's how to learn that. Learn sounds like work. Learn takes you back to school when you were, stuck in the classroom, but you want to be outside playing. Learn was work. Discover is it's all about novelty and news. So using eye magnet words like that, the new words. Another eye magnet word is the word you. A lot of times in marketing, we're so excited about the product or service that we're selling that we talk about it. And, we talk about it in terms of our company, our company, our product, our service, we. And those are words that the eye glosses over, but the eye zeroes in on the word you. So instead of saying, we have this new product, you could say, you might be interested to know about this new product, or you could benefit from this new product. But we want to lead with that word you. We want to use the word you way more often than we use I or we or our company. So the idea of eye magnet words can be very, very powerful with email. Behavioral scientists talk about something called the von Restorff effect, which is this idea that we notice and remember things that are different. So when you think about your inbox, you're looking at your email inbox, everything kind of blends together. But one thing you can do is use some of these eye magnet words. Another thing you can do is you can use certain symbols or emojis, because if not everyone is using symbols and emojis, that makes your subject line stand out. It calls attention to it. It's different than everything else around it in the inbox, and you pay attention to that. I have one email example for a client where we tested a few different approaches. If you'd like, I can share that with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay.
Yes,
All right. We were doing some work for a company that was trying to encourage their employees to save more for their retirement. And, that's when you're asking someone to put money aside for retirement, it's not an easy thing to do. You're more focused on your current spending. If you have some extra money, you'd probably rather go out to dinner than you would, put it aside for later. Maybe you think you're young enough, you don't need to, or you're not sure at what age you should do this, or how much you should be saving. It's a lot that kind of swirls around this idea. So we tested a few different approaches with the emails. One email tested the idea of social proof, and the whole message was why so many people put aside money for retirement. Because we thought, when people are uncertain of what to do, they look to others, they follow their lead. So if a lot of people are doing this, well, then maybe I should. So let me look into it. Another approach we tested was the idea of scarcity. And what behavioral scientists have found is if information is not readily available, we have a tendency to believe it more, right? If you come into information that you think not everyone else knows, you have a tendency to believe it more, you value it more. So we tried an approach that said, most people don't know this secret to saving more money for retirement. It's like, oh, okay, most people don't know the secret, then I'm going to find out, it can really pull you in. And then the third approach we took was the idea of loss aversion. We said, are you making this money mistake? you're making this retirement money mistake. And what the client found was all three of those approaches using behavioral science in those emails did well. But the one that got the most opens was actually the loss aversion one, the idea of, are you making this money mistake? So it's, it's tricky because emails are traditionally a little bit shorter than some other marketing message. If you're writing a blog, if you're writing a letter, if you're doing a television spot, maybe you have a little bit more real estate. A lot of times emails are shorter, so you've got to be very succinct, but it's definitely worth it to get the behavioral science in there because it will make a difference.
Hmm. And in today's times, A/B testing and these mechanisms are there that you can quickly test it out. Just the message you can test out. Just the what's the inbox line you can test out. So and instinctively we would think that some of these things work, but now there was no way to prove it earlier. Like if the creative person would say, let's use this word secret, the secret works. It works with people at this life stage, and they would come from an insight, but everybody would be like, really? Okay, we are not sure, like what's the big deal about just one word here? But now it can be proved. And
yes.
Yeah, I know that you have a creative background also, and you've been into copywriting and all.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I started out as a copywriter and then rose up through the ranks. Yes.
So such nice hacks for writing an email. Just the fact that you become conscious of the fact that, okay, is this going to work or this going to work, and why? I mean, isn't that so powerful? Because I was writing this message in the afternoon, and I really wanted somebody to come for something that I know, like it's a family person, but I know it'd be beneficial for them, and they are not going to prioritize it because no long-term thinking. We human beings don't. We are not long-term thinkers. We live in the now. I
So
think
true.
that's why God invented. That's why we ourselves invented religions. That makes us slightly long-term thinkers. And I wrote the message that first I typed out the whole message, and then I changed it, and I said the meeting, the event is at 10, like you discussed, like you wanted to attend.
That's great.
There are these two times. So let me know what you prefer.
I love what you did about saying to your family member, this time or this time, because what you were doing there is you were taking advantage of something called autonomy bias. And autonomy bias is this very deep-seated need that humans have to exert some kind of control, some kind of agency over ourselves and our environments. And one way to make people feel that they have control is to give them a choice. So instead of saying, the event is at this time, you said, well, we have this time or this time. And what behavioral scientists have found is when you give somebody a choice, you can nearly quadruple the likelihood that they'll make a decision. Pardon me. So if you just put one thing in front of them, well, they have to decide, do I want it? Do I not want it? There's no context. There's no comparison. Maybe I'll do some research. Maybe I'll sleep on it. Maybe I'll ask around. But when you put two things in front of someone, the question goes from do I or do I not want to do this to, well, which of these two is best for me? Which of these two do I want? And you very skillfully applied that. I love it. That was like such a good application of that. There's the research, I think, came out of Tulane University that said you can quadruple the likelihood someone will make a decision. So good for you. You're doing it.
And Nancy, how gullible we are. I mean,
well, that word gullible, I'd rather not use that, but we're hardwired. The human brain has evolved to conserve mental energy, and as a result, we're hardwired to, rely on decision-making shortcuts. We cruise along through life on autopilot. We encounter a certain situation, and we just default to these hardwired behaviors. It allows us to conserve mental energy. It allows us to just make it through the day, and so you could say we're gullible, but you could also say we're optimizing our time and we're optimizing our decision making by not, thinking through every single decision we have to make. Certainly we do sometimes. Certainly we take the time to really engage our cognitive abilities and really make well thought out, well considered decisions. But, if we tried to do that for every decision we had to make, we wouldn't get around to making any. And so it's in our best interest to have these decision making shortcuts and these decision defaults. And as I said earlier, if marketers start to understand that, we can use that to our advantage, just like you used it to your advantage when you were inviting your family member to the event. Just it makes it easier for them and for you.
Yeah, 4x isn't that amazing? And so right. I mean, if one got out of the bed and one had to figure out every day which toothpaste, which soap, which shampoo, which anyways, we are trying to we are overloaded with the number of decisions we have to make and the amount of choice that is available, and every marketer is adding to that. So that brings us to choice architecture. What about
Yes.
that? And how,
So
what is the case behind it? What is it actually? Yeah.
well, it's interesting. Behavioral scientists have found that the way choices are presented influences people's decisions about them. And a marketer might say, well, I'm marketing to adults, and the people in my market are aware of their likes and their dislikes and their wants and their needs. And there's only so much I can do, and how I present my choices shouldn't make a difference. If they want one thing, the fact that I'm showing them two things shouldn't really make a difference, but yet it can. Or if I ask them to do something one way, if they want to do it, they're going to do it. If I ask them to do that same thing a different way, it shouldn't make a difference. If they want to do it, they're going to do it. But that's not really the way it works. What behavioral scientists have found is how the choices are presented makes a difference. And we had a client that was trying to get employees at companies to sign up for voluntary benefits. So these would be special kinds of insurance that the employee, not the company, would pay for. So it could be accidental death and dismemberment. It could be cancer insurance. It could be pet insurance. But the company wasn't going to pay for it. But the company had, negotiated a group price and would even take the money out of the employee's paycheck automatically and send it to the insurer, but the company itself wasn't paying. And so typically what they would do is they would send out an email that said, hey, the insurance person is going to be here, sign up, schedule an appointment to meet with the insurance person. You'll learn all about the different kinds of coverage available, and if you see something you like, you can purchase it. And we decided to use some choice architecture. So instead, we had the company send out an email that said, the insurance person is going to be here. We have scheduled your appointment for you. If for some reason that's not convenient, you can click here to reschedule. So suddenly it was much easier to just go to the appointment. In the first instance, you had to take the effort to schedule an appointment, and it just required effort, and not as many people would go. But when the appointment was scheduled for them, it actually would take more effort to change it than it would to just go. And they saw a 415% increase in the number of people who had the appointments. And then coming out of that, there was a double-digit lift in terms of sales, which, makes sense. The more people that went to a meeting, the larger percentage of them would actually purchase something. But just by something as simple as, instead of saying sign up for the meeting, we said, we've already signed you up for the meeting. Here's when it is. 415% increase in response. So the way we architect choices makes a big difference. We could think, well, the people who wanted to go were going to go regardless, but that's not the case. Simply by changing how they had to, get to the meeting, it made a big, big difference.
Mm. So now, Nancy, you have to help my audience with how they should start applying it. Is it like, here's a marketing challenge, we want consumers to do X, this is where they are in terms of the belief or habit or barrier or motivator, and now what is the principle we can apply? Or is it that you have a ready reckoner of these principles, and like we keep thinking about insights, we keep refreshing it in terms of where, because it's not, I mean, it's like it's applicable everywhere. So how should one start about it, and what's the ideal way eventually?
Sure. So, just I'll tell you what our approach is. So, when a client comes to us, the first thing, one of the first things that we ask is, why won't someone do what you want them to do? All right. I mean, let's figure you've got a good product, you've got a good service, you've got a well-targeted market. So why won't someone do what you're asking them to do? And out of that, we kind of identify the main buying barrier, at least the suspected main buying barrier. Maybe they come back to us and they say, well, people don't know us. We've just expanded into this new market and they don't really know us. Or maybe they say, we've got a really good product, but we're priced a little bit higher and people don't perceive the difference. So they'd rather pay less for the competitor. Or, maybe they say they don't have a perceived need. They don't think they need the product. Whatever it is, we say, all right, what do you think the biggest reason people don't want to do what you're asking them to do is? And then once we've identified what that is, then we look at our behavioral science principles to see what ones we might apply in order to get people to overcome that barrier, to the best argument to overcome the barrier. So, let's say, for example, that you're moving into a new market and people are unfamiliar with you. And so the client says that that's why people aren't going to necessarily buy from us. They don't know who we are. So one thing we could do is, our hypothesis could be, all right, then we're going to use social proof. We're going to show people before we ask them to buy, we're going to show them that a lot of other people like them have already made this buying decision. We're going to talk about, the number of products we've sold. We're going to have some testimonials, and our testimonials aren't just going to be, oh, I love this product, it's great. We're going to start where the prospective customer is. We're going to have testimonials that say, I'd never heard of Acme widgets, but I decided to give them a try. Boy, am I glad I found them. They're terrific, or, I wondered if they were going to be any different than the ones I'm currently using. But, I thought, why not? I'll take a chance and see. They're very different, very much better. So, so that could be one hypothesis. We're going to say, all right, we're going to try social proof. The other hypothesis we could say is, all right, people, they don't know who we are. We're moving into this new area. So we're going to use the authority principle, because ever since we were children, we've been taught to recognize and respect an authority. So when an authority says something, we usually believe them. And if an authority asks us to do something, we often do. So we're moving into this area where people don't know us. So we're going to say that we've been endorsed by the leading association in our industry. Maybe, here it'd be maybe the American Dental Association, or maybe Consumer Reports, maybe a very prominent doctor endorsed something, or a very prominent celebrity. There was a great campaign I read about in India where they used the relatives of famous actors and actresses, because I assume, maybe a little bit more expensive to get the actual actor, but if you get that person's mother or their uncle, or, and it was very interesting. So it was a little bit of authority, but also a little bit of social proof. It's like, oh, people like me, like I'm a lot more like the uncle than I am the actual star. But I get some of the star power and some of the social proof. So, but what we would do, I'm digressing, but what we would do is, you'd identify that problem, and then you'd look for 2 or 3 different potential behavioral science principles that we can use to overcome the barrier. And then we put them in market, we would test them, and we would see what works the best. And then when we find what works the best, then that's the one that we roll out. So in the book, I have 17 chapters, and I have my 25 kind of go-to behavioral science principles. These are the ones that seem to be the most effective for most of the marketing problems that come up. They're the ones that have succeeded for me. They're the ones that have succeeded for other people in advertising and marketing, the case studies that I've seen. And so those are the ones that I talk about in the book, because if you start with those, that's a pretty good foundation. So. All right.
So Nancy, this is rapid and this is fiery. Okay. I will shoot the question, you shoot the answer. Otherwise, I shoot the gun.
Okay. A little pressure here.
Yes. No elaboration, no thinking. Okay. Mother's best advice.
Oh, my mother used to tell me that mouth of yours will get you into trouble sometime, because I used to like to make jokes or be a little too quick with the quip. So that was her best advice. It's come true.
Okay. Alternate profession could have been?
An attorney.
What would you do on Mars for fun?
I would open up a bottled water concession. I'd sell bottled water.
Okay. Business. Okay. As per your spouse, your most often used phrase.
Like I said,
Oh, oh yeah, believable. One thing no one knows about you.
I'm incredibly shy.
Okay, yeah, difficult to guess. A book you'd like to gift to all your friends. It can't be your own.
Everybody Writes by Anne Handley.
What's something new happening in life right now?
Let's see. Well, this Sunday, we're taking the grandniece and the grandnephew to a Cirque du Soleil program. So it's one that I haven't seen. They haven't seen it. It's going to be a new experience for us all.
Awesome. What's your favorite childhood memory?
Oh, wow, there are probably so many, but the first one that comes to mind, I was in high school. I was competing in a speech competition. My parents were in the audience. The speech I gave was supposed to be a funny one, but one never knows, right? And at one point I said something and I looked at my dad and he was laughing. And so that's a good memory for me.
Oh, so it's a wrap up. Nancy, would you like to share any online addresses? We'll put it in the show notes, but how can audiences reach out to you? How would you prefer it?
Sure. So you can absolutely you can find me at HBT Marketing. So it would be N Harhut at HBTMKTG.com. HBT stands for Human Behavior Triggers, and MKTG is short for marketing. But you can email me there. You can go to our website. We've got a lot of information, a lot of thought leadership that you can download. Your listeners can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. And you can find the book at koganpage.com or Amazon or Barnes & Noble or any of the places that fine books are sold. It's called Using Behavioral Science in Marketing. So I'd love to hear from your listeners. Audiences would be absolutely well served if they liked, subscribed, and listened to your channel. This is great stuff. I've been enjoying some of your other interviews as well.
Yay. Thank you so much, Nancy. It was a pleasure to host you. It was wonderful chatting. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun.